Okay, so get this. A single, fully grown apple tree is out there silently pumping roughly 30 liters of invisible water straight up into the sky every single day. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's like taking 15 large 2-liter soda bottles and just emptying them right into the air. It's this massive, completely hidden natural engine running right outside your window. And honestly, most of us walk right past without ever noticing it.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so pumped to dive into this with you today because we're going to be unlocking the secrets of this incredible invisible water pump that quite literally drives our entire global water cycle. It's a natural phenomenon known as transpiration.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, nature's invisible water pump. Then 2, proving plants actually sweat. 3, the mechanics of transpiration. 4, surviving the elements. 5, why plant sweat matters. And finally, 6, weeping plants and guttation.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Nature's Invisible Water Pump, Nature's Hidden Engine.
So what exactly is transpiration? Well, think of it kind of like a plant sweating. Just like you might sweat at the gym to cool down, plants are continuously releasing water. But here is the really wild part. Imagine you had an engine that wasted 98% of its fuel. That is basically a plant. It continuously absorbs all this water through its roots, but actually only uses about 2% of it for photosynthesis and its vital activities. The other 98%? Just lost to the atmosphere as vapor. It's mostly an unavoidable byproduct, really, simply because the plant has to open its microscopic pores just to breathe in carbon dioxide from the air.
Moving on to Section 2, proving plants actually sweat, visualizing water loss.
Now, you might be wondering, if this vapor is completely invisible, how do we actually know this is happening? Well, let's play detective. If you take a totally normal potted plant, wrap it up completely in a transparent polythene bag, tie it really tight at the base, and leave it out in the sun, within just an hour or two, you're going to see distinct little drops of water condensing right on the inside of that bag. And to take it a step further, scientists run experiments with bell jars using a very specific chemical indicator called dry cobalt chloride paper. Now, this paper starts out blue when it's completely dry, but when it's exposed to the moisture being given off by a plant trapped inside a jar, it actually turns pink. So we have this beautiful, undeniable double visual proof: physical condensation on the plastic and the chemical paper literally changing color. It confirms without a shadow of a doubt that the plant is pumping out water vapor.
Let's zoom in for Section 3, the mechanics of transpiration, a microscopic view.
When you highly magnify the outer layer of a leaf, you'll spot these minute openings. A single opening is called a stoma. And if you look closely, you'll notice 2 specialized kind of bean-shaped cells surrounding the pore. Those are called guard cells, and they're basically the bouncers for the leaf. They dynamically control the opening and closing of that stoma. So during the day, these pores are flung wide open, mostly to suck in the carbon dioxide the plant desperately needs to manufacture food. But, well, while that front door is open to let carbon dioxide in, all that precious water vapor naturally diffuses right out.
Let's track the journey of a single water droplet chronologically. It's honestly incredible. Step 1, the roots absorb water deep down in the soil. Step 2, this water shoots up through the vascular system in the stem, eventually reaching the tissues of the leaf. Step 3, the water seeps out from the plant cells as a super thin film and evaporates, totally saturating the tiny little air spaces inside the leaf itself. And finally, Step 4, that vapor diffuses from that crowded, high-concentration area inside right out through those open stomata and into the open air. It is just this continuous, microscopic conveyor belt of water.
Now, this water loss actually happens across 3 distinct zones. The vast majority of the heavy lifting, the absolute maximum water loss, happens through those stomatal leaf pores we were just talking about. Then, a much more minor amount kind of sneaks directly out through the waxy outer layer, the cuticle, on the surfaces of the leaves and stems. And finally, the bare minimum escapes through these tiny, permanent openings on old, woody stems, which are called lenticels.
All right, Section 4, Surviving the Elements, Environmental Factors.
Plants are constantly adjusting to the environmental dials around them. Certain external factors will drastically crank up the rate of transpiration. We're talking intense sunlight, high outside temperatures, and fast wind velocity. Actually, a strong wind acts almost exactly like a blow dryer, rapidly sweeping away the water vapor right outside the leaf, which just clears the way so even more moisture can escape. On the flip side, though, the biggest factor that reduces transpiration is high outside humidity. If the air around the plant is already completely saturated with moisture, well, there's just nowhere for the new vapor to go, so it really slows down the outward diffusion from the leaf.
Of course, extreme environments force extreme adaptations, right? Take a cactus. To survive in a bone-dry climate where water is incredibly scarce, it has permanently altered its entire structure. It actually modified its leaves into sharp spines. This is brilliant because it drastically cuts down on the exposed surface area where transpiration could happen. Instead of leaves, the thick, green, swollen stem takes over the job of photosynthesis and acts as a massive water storage tank. The stomata are even sunken deep down into these little grooves just to hide them from the drying desert wind. It is an absolutely brilliant evolutionary defense mechanism to keep from completely drying out.
Moving to Section 5, Why Plant Sweat Matters, Global Impact.
So there's this fascinating concept called the transpiration stream. As all that water evaporates into the atmosphere from the surface of the leaves, it creates this massive, continuous suction force. Think of it literally like pulling liquid up through a straw. The evaporation happening way at the top draws more water up through the stem, which in turn forces the roots to absorb even more from the soil. This transpirational pull is so unbelievably powerful that it can draw heavy sap and vital minerals all the way up the trunks of trees that are 50 meters tall. I mean, that is huge.
So, what's the big takeaway? Well, this plant sweat serves some profoundly important purposes. First up, all that evaporation actually cools the plant down in hot weather, protecting its delicate enzymes from getting completely fried by intense heat. Second, as we just saw, it creates that powerful suction force needed to pull sap upward. Third, it acts as a delivery system, distributing water and vital mineral salts to every single corner of the plant structure. And fourth, and this is a real game changer, on a global scale, it massively increases atmospheric moisture. By silently pumping literally millions of liters of water vapor into the sky, vast stretches of forests actually increase the moisture in our atmosphere and directly physically bring us rain. These plants aren't just sitting there, they are literally creating our weather patterns.
And finally, Section 6, Weeping Plants and Guttation, Liquid Exudation. Now, you've probably walked outside early in the morning, seen drops of water on a leaf and thought, oh, hey, that's transpiration. But actually, scratch that. Let's clearly separate two different things here. Transpiration is the loss of pure water strictly as an invisible vapor, and that usually happens during dry, sunny, daytime conditions. But guttation? That is the physical exudation of actual liquid water drops, and unlike pure vapor, this liquid actually contains dissolved minerals. Guttation happens specifically in very warm, highly humid environments, typically in the early morning or late at night. When you see distinct droplets clinging perfectly along the margins of a leaf, that's not morning dew, and it's definitely not vapor. Here's what's happening. When the environment is super humid, transpiration gets heavily blocked. The vapor just can't escape. But the plant's roots, they're still down there aggressively absorbing water from the warm soil. So this builds up a massive internal hydrostatic pressure. This root pressure gets so intense that it quite literally forces the excess liquid water directly out through these special little pore-bearing structures on the leaf margins, which are called hydathodes. So the plant isn't sweating vapor here. The internal pressure is so high it is physically forced to weep liquid droplets.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. Knowing now that a single solitary tree pumps dozens of liters of water into the sky every day, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. What would happen to your local weather, your rainfall, and your climate if the millions of invisible water pumps rooted in the ground all around you suddenly just turned off? Next time you look out the window, I hope you don't just see a quiet, still landscape, but instead, you see the vital, roaring, highly active water engines that plants truly are. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you on the next explainer.